Hi everybody and welcome back to my modeling channel. Today we're gonna build an MD11 on scale 144 from MikroMir factory. It's an Ukrainian brand, so let's open the box and see what we have inside. So initially we're gonna find the instruction sheet and the decal sheet. So we have two options at the moment, Finnair. Both of them are Finnair and have special liveries. One is the pretty old one and then the previous one from the actual one. So those ones were in 2000 and I think that was for about 2 to 3 years, and this one was in the 80s and 90s if I remember correctly. Then we also had another option to make the colors of Citybird. Was a charter from Belgium. So now we're gonna open the instruction sheet. So we have a descriptive of the MD11. Then here you have on the second page the kits with all the parts that you have on the kits for the next 2 pages. Then we have the options here. We have some covers for Citybirds and the company logo, and you have also the options of the cockpit window that you can put. So you can make the cockpit. You have the options of doing all the seats and all the parts of that seat. So you can make an open cockpit as well, depending on what you would like to do. Then you have the instruction on how to build the engines and the tail, and there are different kits because there is different type of engines as well. Then the fuselage, and I have to say that this is pretty straightforward, as you can see. So that's for the first part. Now we have a beautiful option that we're going to open. So here are the masking tape for the logo, the company, for Citybird and the cockpit window. We have another part with the windows and the doors are different colors, red and grey color, and then the main one for those Finnair special liveries as well. Now let's open the box and see the kit itself. So one of the sprue is a detail of the tail of that MD11, and I have to say that the panel lines are quite detailed, but they are very fine engravement, so that might be quite interesting and might have to do some rescribing. So then we have the underbelly, and it seems like it is the structure for the wings and the fuselage, and then we have some part of the cockpit. Now we have another sprue with the details of the engines, as we can see, and still very fine engravement. And I believe that's going to be exactly like Eastern Express. As we can see, there will be some compilation. I don't know if you can see better from here, but there will be some excess plastic just at the point of junction between the sprue and the part itself. Now we're coming on the wings, simple wings, up 2 parts, a sandwich. We have some structure panel here. I can see already that on the top there are some spots where I will have to do a bit of filling, but nothing basically we can, nothing too complicated, but a little bit of extra work. And it's the same for that left wing, and there are some also some panel lines who needs to be rescribed as well. Then we're gonna move on. So we have the winglets, the flaps fairing, and the horizontal stabilizer that we have here. And then we're moving on the core of the engine. So it is a nice one because we have quite a lot of details on those fans, and then there is the core of the turbine. That's so might be a nice detail that we will be able to build. Then we're moving on toward the landing gear. Landing gear has been provided with some detail with the brake units. Those are in two parts. They are not full, and they will be a little bit easier than the other ones. Then we have the seat for the cockpit and all the details as well for the cockpit with the sticks. So I might consider to do a cockpit detail on that aircraft. I'll have to check it out. So for the clear part, we have the cockpit window, but honestly, it's not really nice. I have to say it's a little bit. Might be able to get something out of it. Those are the landing lights that were on those wings, so we can see that there has been a little bit of detachment, so we will have the opportunity to make a clear landing lights. And last is basically the fuselage. So the fuselage will have a little bit of extra work, as you can see. I mean, the mold is not a fantastic quality. The edges are a little bit rough. I will try to show you a little bit closer. But as we can see here, there might be the edges are pretty rough, so there might be a little bit of sanding required, but nothing too hard. I would say it would be mainly for somebody who's already a little bit experienced on modeling, but nothing too hard like a vacuum kit, a vacuum form kit. So enough of talking, and let's start building. So we're gonna start this build by preparing our cockpit. So initially we're gonna assemble the basic part of the cockpit with the walls, the panels, and all those parts, and the seat for the support for the seat as well. Then we're gonna have to prepare some other parts, and I have to say that on those Micro Mir models are mainly like Eastern Express and those other Russian brands. They are pretty good, but I have to say that there is a lot of preparing time. That means you have to prepare the parts, as there is always a little bit of extra plastic around the mold. So now we're going to prepare the engine number 2 and then the number 1 and 3. So for this we just cut the parts, and there will be a little bit of fiddling, and then we're going to be able to move on and prepare the horizontal stabilizer. So there were two, as you can see, in two parts sandwich, and then we had to glue them, but you will see later on that there will be also a little bit of a work on the adjustments and putting. Then what we did this, we just glue all the wings of that MD11, and I have to say later on that I had to do some adjustment as well. So what we are going to do next, we're going to paint a light gray on that cockpit, and then while this is drying I'm going to come back, as the wings were far too thick. There was a little gap of maybe half a millimeter between both parts. I had to start to use sanding techniques. So initially I used a very strong sand sponge, dry sand it, and then what I did some more correction, either with a scalpel or a cutter knife, and then I could reach the proper thickness, and then I was able to glue our wings together and get the proper result. Now that this will be drying, we're going to move on to the build of our engine. So we're going to put the fan disc and the turbine, and then we're going to finish the number 2 engine and let it dry, and then we will be able to move on to engine number 1 and 3. So as you can see, it's a little bit of a fiddling, and there will be also quite a bit of putty on that model, and there will be in and out some more correction that I had to do, so it required a little bit of patience. And I would say those models are mainly for experienced modelers. So if you want to get a good result, yeah, you just need some patience, and some hardware later on. So what we're doing now, we're filling all the gaps with some Tamiya putty. So I use this time some gray putty initially. After that, we're gonna move on to our cockpit, because I will try again to do this model with a clear cockpit, clear window, windscreen. So I will work on that. So there will be the yoke that I will have to paint in a black color. Then I will have to let them dry, and then I will paint my seats on a different colors. Basically, there is this kind of a light gray color. And then while this is drying, I will start to prepare and glue our wheels all together. So the wheels, and then of course I will be able to I will paint the cushion while the glue is drying for my wheels. I'll paint the cushions and also the seat belt for those cockpit seats. As you can see, I've been using 3 colors. And then we're gonna start working on the nose landing gear. And I have to say that this was a little bit tricky, because overall I had to do some extra work. So now what I'm doing is I just print out on the A4 format, from my printer directly, the engine panel that I found on the internet. I just cut them and apply some regular PVA glue. The same for the overhead panel as well. And that fit the trick, didn't need to do any decals or anything. Then we put the seats all together, and then of course the aircraft yoke, and we're gonna finish that cockpit very soon. Now of course the glare shield has to be painted in a matte black color, and after that, as you can see, the cockpit is almost done. So we're gonna be able to fit it in, and then we're gonna continue and fix the nose wheel basically. So that part was very fragile. It braked out during the build, and I have to rebuild basically the complete nose wheel gear, but I didn't show it. You'll see just the finished result at the end. So after that, I glue my fuselage, and this time I use also some very thin glue that I use, and I have to say that helped quite a lot. And then after that, of course, sometimes you are able to add some more Havel glue. So depending on the job you do, I will change sometimes the glue I'm using. Of course, I fill up all the gaps after that, and using again some putty. And after that, the standard the standard things you have to do is you have to do a lot of sanding to get all the parts correct and the correct shape, and remove all the extra putty that you put. Now we're gonna prepare the tail of that MD11 as it came back as separated. And initially we're gonna glue them all together with some regular Havel glue. I'm using this time the needle glue. And of course I will have to put the number 2 engine on the back. And then of course, while this will be drying, after that I'll be able to do some more I will be able to add some more putty. So now we're gonna work on the engine 1 and 3 on the final assembly, and there was quite a big gap, I have to say, and that required quite a lot of extra putty on top of the engines, but I managed at the end, after putting a couple of layers, to get a proper result. So once that will be dry, we're gonna add them all together and fix them on that. Then of course we're gonna remove the extra putty by sanding it down, and for these, of course, I always use a different type of sandpaper. I use a pretty gross sandpaper initially, between about 600, between 300 and 600, and then for the second layer I'm using for the finishing I'm using 8 to 1000, and then I will see if there is still some gap remaining. And if there is some gap remaining, I will fill them up once again with some putty and sand it down again until I get a proper result. So that's the case at the moment. There was we needed to add some more putty on those wings, and now we're gonna sand the tail of that MD11. So we are now going to fill up all the gaps on that main fuselage. So there was a little bit of a putty who got under the fuselage, and then mainly between the clear part and the fuselage. And of course that was a very sensitive area, as of course I wanted to build that model with the clear windows and the options of seeing the cockpit. Of course after that I put the wing fairing and the underbelly and glue it together, and then of course we have to fill up the gaps with some more extra putty. So now we doing the second part of that sanding on that clear part, and it takes a little bit of time, as you can see, and some very thin sandpaper. Then after finishing sanding the aircraft, I had to do a rescribing work, and for that I use a razor blade saw and to do the initial work. And then of course I use a rescribing tool from Tamiya that I had purchased a long time ago. Then once that was ready, it was time to put the tail, fit the tail of the MD11 on the fuselage. And then now we are going to work on those engines. We're going to put the main body of the engine together, and then of course now we're going to fill up all the gaps, and that part I have to say was a little bit tricky. It required a little bit more work, as I wanted to get really a neat result, and so there was a lot of sanding and re-putting some more extra putty, refilling gaps and sanding down again. So it took quite a while, but you will be able to see that there was different colors of putty, so that gives you an idea of the extra work it took. And I have to say it was pretty long, but the result was very nice at the end. Now it's about time to finish to sand down that extra putty on that tail, and then we're going to be able to glue those wings together. So I'll start with the right wings, and then following with the left wing of that aircraft. And of course once the glue will be dry, there will be again filling up gaps with some putty. Once again, let it dry and sand it down once again. So now I'm going to use a mix of gray and metallic paint together to paint the fan disc, and I will let it dry. In the meantime, I will prepare the engine lips for the cold anti-ice on the engine number 2 that I will glue. And of course there will be some gap remaining, so I will have to add a little bit of putty later on. And while the glue is drying, I'm going to sand down and remove all the extra putty on the wing root. Now we are going to use some matte black paint to paint the cone, the engine, the fan cone actually, and that's just with a regular paintbrush. And then we're gonna fit the engine anti-ice. So before that, what I will do is I will protect the intake, as I will have to do a little bit of paint from outside. So I will paint those in metallic paint. So what I want is to have a neat and to protection, to protect basically the fan disc and the engine intake from overspilling any paint. Now our engine are almost ready. We finish to fill up the last gaps. Now we sand them down, rescribe all the panels, and we're going to be able to put them very soon on the aircraft itself. So that's going to be the final part of that assembly. So we're going to feed those, and then our plane will be soon will be ready for the paint booth. So after putting the masking tape on the cockpit, I'm using a light gray color from Tamiya, and I'm gonna paint all these all together and remove all the excess of all the excess of putty, and then I will have a standard gray color as a primer. So then I'll start to paint, use also a gray color to paint our wheels. And then it's going to be time to paint what we call the corrugat on those wings. So for that, it's a mix of light gray and some metallic paint. So while this is drying, I will paint the wheels, and for this I will use a matte black. After that, we're going to use some metallic paint. I normally use chrome from Tamiya, and that gives us a pretty nice result. So for these, I will use that paint for the leading edge and the engine anti-ice, and that gives a pretty neat result, I have to say, toward the end. Then after that, we will have to do some more masking, and then I will paint the wings and the engines with a very light gray color. So for these, I use a mix with more or less 50% white, 50% light gray, and then of course I mix it almost to 30 to 50% with the paint thinner. Once that will be dried, we're going to be some masking again, and then we're going to paint our whole fuselage in a white color. I will detail the engine, metallic paint on the engine later on toward the end of the build, before decaling the aircraft. So once the paint has been dry, especially the white, I wait about 2 days as a curing period to make sure that I would not have any more issues. So after that, we start painting basically the strut on this undercarriage, and of course the brake unit. For that I use a dark gunmetal color, and then we're going to start preparing our undercarriage. So as I mentioned earlier, I had some issue with the nose wheel. I rebuilt it, but I didn't show that part on the video. So we have a central landing gear, which is common to the MD11 and the DC-10. Then I'm gonna fix them toward the aircraft, and then after a little bit of a trial and fiddling, we'll be able to get a proper result. Then we're gonna fit the gear door. Then I realized that I didn't have a proper door paint, so I had to reverse the paints, and but that I will be able to fit them on a little bit later on. So we're gonna fit them on the main landing gear, we're gonna fit the struts, and then before decaling everything, we're gonna put our paint. So for that, I used some close-up pictures, and there was different colors and different tone in the metal. So the closest part of the engine body was I used a flat aluminium color from Tamiya. Then I used the chrome for the main body. Then I did some mix between gunmetal color and and I add some pigments, and then I was able to get the proper color for my engines. Then the decaling process, I used the decal for furnished or given by Micro Mir. I have to say they were not. I was expecting a worse decals to work with, but it required, especially the big ones, require quite a lot of work. There has been a bit of wrinkle, but I used some microsol solution, and that helped me, and that did the trick to get rid of all those wrinkles. And then we prepare all that Santa Claus livery for that MD11 of Finnair. So this is the final result of that MD11 on scale 144 from Micro Mir. I hope you enjoyed that build with me. Honestly, I really enjoyed that build. It required a little bit of work. I was expecting it, but I really enjoyed it. And I think with a little bit of work we can get a pretty decent result on that aircraft. So I hope you like that video. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you soon for another build video and another kit review. Thank you for watching.